like these Romanian rhythm squats, which is literally just like doing some random bop with a barbell on your back, or you can do it with like a front squat, or you can do it like, there are so many different ways to execute a single movement. For me, the way that I'm starting to do it now, because I'm seeing everyone's putting out like these form check things, and it's like, this is what I love. Like, I love the training aspect because that is what builds the body. The nutrition burns the fat, but you can burn all the fat that you want. You're going to look like shit if you don't train properly. I'm sorry, but you are, because when I first did my first comp prep, I felt like a freaking flat tack thing. I had nothing to me. Whereas I thought I had all this muscle under all that fat that I had, but I had nothing. I looked like shit, but I still went on stage because it's just like, I will improve this in 2 years' time. And that's the thing, like, you need that muscle underneath you to be able to reveal it. And on the podcast that you'll be hearing before, like on like a couple of podcasts ago, we said you can only really crash diet once in your life, and then you won't be able to actually do it again. Like, your body will not respond the same. It is going to, like, you can only do it once. And that's what I did that first time. And then I kept myself stuck for ages. And you saw that in my transformation, if you did not check my blog, but you saw that in my transformation where I kept myself stuck because I did 8 shows in the space of 2 years. So then after all that, I didn't really make any progress. And that's when I was hormonally screwed up, which is where I went through the process of fixing myself, which took about 2 years physically, 3 years mentally, 3.5 years mentally to get over all of that shit. Whereas now it's exactly what we've been speaking about. Like, there is so much more to the picture. I feel freedom in being 80%, 100%, whatever you want to call it. I find freedom in that because I'm in control of my body and it makes me feel amazing. And my hair has grown so much. My nails are amazing. My skin is amazing. I only get random breakouts when it's PMS week, but they're not even that much. I only get a couple of my side of my eye thing up here. I used to get a little bit down on my chin, but I don't get that shit anymore. Like, you don't get as many side effects when you're doing shit right. But back to the Romanian rhythm squats, it's like you see someone in the gym jumping with a barbell on the back, you wonder what the friggin' hell they're doing, but there's a purpose to it. Like, there is so much shit that people condone, but it might have a purpose to it for that person. Like, someone doing behind the neck presses, you might think is a bad thing, but it's actually probably the best way to load your shoulders versus in front of you. But why would you do them behind you if you don't have the shoulder mobility for it? So it's bad for some people, good for some other people. And then actually doing barbell presses in general, that is bad for some people because they can't even do that properly because they'll end up looking like a friggin' banana backwards because they don't have not even that mobility. Like, you need to use dumbbells for that. Like, there's all these different nuances to everything that you do with training. It's the exact same thing with nutrition. There are so many nuances to everything. Like, someone, just like we said, I can't remember who said what about something, but it's just like everything is relative. You said the thing is relative. Yes, strength is relative, but so is low carb. Like, low carb for me, for example, like if I told you I was on low carb, what would you expect? Probably like 100 grams, 120. Is that what people usually think? I don't know. What do people usually think is low carb?
I would say anything below. I think anything below 150 is low carb.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for me, like right now I'm on 200 grams of carbs, and that's like very low.
So you
like
think
very low for me.
What would you say is low for you? 150 for you. What about for you?
Like for me, just in general, like, man, I thought 300 was pretty low for me.
I'm the same. I'm the same. If someone told me I had to eat 300 grams of carbs, I would probably chuck a fit. I don't even think that I would realistically write a meal plan for myself where I can realistically stick to that. I'm on 410 grams of carbs right now, and I find it so easy to eat. I don't even struggle to eat 410 grams of carbs. My actual main carb amount is usually around 360 to 380. But because I'm building, I added that up, and I'm about to increase again because I've been building for the last 6 weeks and I haven't gained a thing. So now I'm probably going to go up to 4,000, probably going to go up to 3,000 calories. And that's going to mainly come from carbs because my protein's already at 210 and I don't function well on high fats. So my carbs are coming up. Like, that is low protein for me. I mean, that is normal protein for me, for example. There's another one. Like, what is low carb for someone isn't low carb for everybody. And this is where I really wanted to talk about the muscle thing. Okay, let's talk about muscle. Let's talk about muscle, baby. Let's talk about you. And everything has some type of rhythm to it. But honestly, like, the harder you train, the more capacity that you build. Like, this also comes down to having a good aerobic base. If it wasn't for me, actually, I lie. I'm not going to even bring that up. But actually training for my half marathon made me a more efficient carb user. But now I haven't done a single run in like a year almost. And I'm still at that place. So it's not just the cardio, like the cardio doesn't do that for you. It's the muscle. It's the muscle that allows you to have this metabolic furnace to be able to burn fat, burn carbs. Now you guys can ramble about this because there's so much you guys can like chit chat between each other on this one. It's just amazing muscle.
Yeah, I mean, muscle is very important. With more muscle, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, this is how much calories you burn at just basically doing nothing, like to function. Your BMR naturally goes up because your muscle is more energy expensive. So in a way, like the way, I guess, in a way you can think of like muscle, like adding on different parts to another, like a factory, right? Your body's a factory. And if you were to expand that factory, that's like adding more muscle. Like muscle is like more machinery to operate with, right? So if you're trying to be healthier, if you're trying to say lose fat, depending on what your goals are, you're going to have a better time, really much easier time burning fat if you have more muscle. But not just that, but your strength is going to be higher, your longevity is going to be greater. Your hormonal health is going to probably be better as well. Like there's a positive, really positively, everything that's going to, with more muscle, everything is going to go real up positively. You run into an issue where, like the skinny fat look, for example, right? It results from having a low protein diet and typically, being in a severe caloric deficit or a chronically low diet, calorically. But yeah, skinny fat is not a good thing to be. It is very unhealthy. I was once there, and even though you reached a certain weight, right, you're light in terms of your body, you shedded the pounds. You shedded more so your muscle, and that's not good. You want more muscle. But yeah, I'll let Sarah take the rest.
Yeah, I'm just kind of go off of what Kenny was saying. I think a lot of people, and I was once one of them, is a lot of people misconstrue the fact that they have a goal weight versus what they're actually picturing in their mind. And that term, toned is literally just having muscle and having it exposed when you lose body fat. That's literally what it is. If you are, if you go to diet and you don't have muscle, like Ruby was saying, like there's not going to be anything there and you're going to achieve that skinny fat look, or you're going to look really, really flat. And, the second I got over having a goal weight is when my body changed. And the more muscle you have, the more you have to fuel your body properly to maintain it. The more your muscle is so energy expensive. When you're eating in caloric deficit, the first thing that's going to go, like if you're eating chronically low calories, your body's going to do away with the muscle because that's what's consuming the energy, right? This is why having so much, like having protein and having high protein is so important to support that muscle and to continue to maintain that lean muscle mass. And you can't, protein is the most essential macronutrient. Without it, we will die. We'll literally die without having protein. Carbs and fats, you can do without them. Do we suggest that? Absolutely not. They definitely have their functions in the body. They definitely have their uses in the body, not just for, physique purposes, but for your overall health, right? But protein is the most essential and you cannot survive without protein. And, typically I like to kind of give people a kind of general rule of thumb. If you're out there doing this on your own, 1 pound or 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is essentially how we kind of like to calculate things or tell people, that's the best place to start because things will kind of go up and down from there. Go ahead.
For kilos, that's 2.2 grams
thank
per
you.
kilo. And I would say 2.2 all the way up to 2.9 grams per kilo is a really great place to be. And it's the one thing that you can increase the most without a lot of side effect in terms of spilling over into gaining fat, because excess fat, as Broderick Chavez said it, and I'll never forget it, he's like, extra fat, that goes straight to your butt. Like it's like extra fat just gets stored as fat, and then carbs are next and protein is last. So if anything, you want to increase that protein, it is your best fat loss agent. That is in kilos. Keep continuing. This is so good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that protein is so, so important. The only thing that I will say, like, you have to make sure that you monitor is your digestion. That's the one thing that can kind of get a little wonky for a little while, not forever. Your body does acclimate to it. But you need protein to survive. You need protein to build muscle. You need protein to lose fat. You need it for everything. Kenny, I'll go ahead and let you kind of take the reins if you want to speak on it.
Yeah. So I guess, with protein absorption, like, for example, and this is a myth that I kind of grew up with, where you can't absorb more than 40 grams of protein per meal, which I don't know where that 40 grams well, actually I do know where. So the 40 grams of protein, that number, that's about where muscle protein synthesis spikes. So like whenever you eat protein, your body is going to initiate a process called muscle protein synthesis. It's known as short for MPS. And this is where your muscle basically starts to repair itself or to build upon itself, whatever your body's going to need it for, depending on what you did in the gym. But with protein meals, like for example, if you break down your meals 6 times throughout the day, or 4 times throughout the day, or whatever it may be, that duration or frequency of meals, it doesn't necessarily have any sort of massive effect on your overall gains. It's more so like, can you sustainably eat that many meals and be okay with it? So for example, if you have an easier time eating 6 meals per day, or if you have an easier time eating 4 meals per day, then perfect. But with protein absorption, so for example, if you really love protein and you want to eat a bunch of it in a meal, and your digestive, or digestion is able to handle it, then understand that any protein that would be considered wasted is actually not being wasted. It is going to still be used for either building muscle, repairing cells, whatever it's going to be. But muscle protein synthesis can spike, and then it can also stay elevated throughout the day, depending on how much protein you have. So if you have 70 grams of protein, it's not the 30 grams of protein is not going to be wasted. It's just more so, it's just going to take a little bit slower to digest. So, with protein sources, you want to make sure you have optimal protein sources, such as, chicken, salmon. I love barramundi. It's a white fish, tilapia, beef, I guess bison. I'm not sure if they consider that beef. What else? Even I think tofu. Tofu? Yeah, tofu's good. And edamame. But yeah, there's a bunch of different protein sources that you get. So yeah, I mean, it's not hard to have a high protein diet. It's just more so trying to plan and eat in alignment with your body. When I first started, I didn't realize how much protein I needed to eat. I was eating far too little, and the amount of food that I needed to eat was actually kind of jaw-dropping. And in the beginning, I was like, oh shit, this is a lot of food. But then you get used to it, and next thing you know, you're actually pretty hungry because your metabolism's going up because of more food. But I would say a high protein diet is really, really essential, not just for building muscle, but also just being healthier in general, because it is going to allow you to burn more fat, and to stay relatively lean.
I actually find that hilarious that you mentioned that, because I remember my first memory of training. The thing that I did straight after my workout was drink 2 scoops of protein powder and eat a massive protein bar. So I already knew straight away that I needed to eat more protein when I trained. It's like, I knew that I needed more protein when I don't even know how, but it's like the first thing I did was double my protein intake. Like, I was eating so much protein. Ugh, it was insane, but it's like, everyone has different like things that they need to figure out what is their bottleneck stopping them from progressing. And if you keep doing the same shit, you're going to get the same results. But here's the main things that you need to take away from all of that is you need a lot more muscle, you need a lot more protein, and carbs are not bad. And you can eat a lot more of them if you actually train to build muscle and you actually eat more protein and you stop starving yourself 24/7. Because here's another thing as well. Like, if you're going to cut your carbs all the way down, your body is going to down-regulate the functions and systems within that actually metabolize those carbs. But the thing is, it can also upregulate them over time. And that's the same with like the protein stuff. It upregulates both of those systems over time if you give it enough time, and if you stop falling back into the, oh my God, I feel like shit, I'm just going to go crash diet again.
Yeah, it's the quality of your food for sure. I mean, not just like qualitative amounts, like amount of protein, carbs, and fats, but it's also like the quality of your food. So for example, you can totally hit your macros, but eat complete shit. Like at one point I was eating Carl's Jr. I don't know if you have Carl's Jr. in Australia, but it's a fast food place. So basically like burgers and chicken, and they had the sandwich it was like a spicy chicken sandwich. They were only $1. And I would get, I kid you not, like 3 at a time, and I would eat them. They were so good. And at this time I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But I ate so many spicy chicken sandwiches that I actually smelled, like when I would sweat, I actually smelled like spicy chicken sandwiches, like as if we were next to a Carl's Jr.
This was long before I met him, by the way. So like,
yeah, this is, I was unhealthy. And dude, I would wear like white shirts, and my pits were fucking yellow. Like they were yellow. It was like, it looked like a spicy chicken sandwich because the spicy chicken sandwich is like kind of yellow. And anyway, yeah. I guess my point is that if you are eating enough protein, but your food quality sucks, then you're also running into another issue. You got to make sure your food quality is good as well. But yeah, I will. I mean, don't get me wrong. I sometimes crave like a spicy chicken sandwich. I am a fatty inside, like total foodie. But
it actually works for you now because you've built up. This is the thing. Like, it's not about not having that fried chicken sandwich, because you have more ability to have that fried chicken sandwich the longer that you've been through this lifestyle, and you won't always be able to have that sandwich. If you're dieting, then no, because if you have that sandwich, you just gave up half of your caloric intake for the day, and you're going to be a starving mess. You're going to feel like Sarah on her freaking fast, because that's what it's going to practically be like you need to make sacrifices when you're in a diet, but they're so much easier to make when you're not dieting year round. Like, I'm happy to forego a lot of shit when I'm in a dieting phase, because I know that it's not forever. Like, and you won't have to diet on such low calories if you do the right things and you build enough muscle. Like, if all you do is run your engine with cardio and dumb shit, like when it actually comes time to diet again, you don't even have an engine to use. Like, you need a big enough engine. If you have a big enough engine, then when you go into the diet, you're actually churning a lot more fuel for more calories because you have a bigger engine, kind of thing. And I really wanted to actually touch on the health aspect that Kenny was going on about, because as soon as he mentioned all that, it's like, yes, because it's not just about how much you eat, it's about what you eat, because what you eat impacts how much you eat, impacts the type of weight, I almost said type of fat, the type of weight you lose, and the type of body you build, because the things you need for your metabolism are vitamins and the minerals, especially vitamin B, especially magnesium, especially vitamin D. Magnesium and vitamin B, they're depleted with stress, they're depleted with medication. If you get put on medication for health reasons, goodbye. If you're on the pill, goodbye to a whole lot more of other things, because the pill actually depletes shit too. It's stress on your body, and it's artificial hormones that impact other things in your body as well, which a lot of doctors don't tell you. Like, I'm not anti-pill for people that need it for prescribed reasons, but if it's to regulate your cycle, you're not regulating shit. And if it's to mask your symptoms or something, you're not fixing anything, and the symptoms are still going to be there. Like, there are reasons to take it, there are more reasons to stay off it. Anyway, medication, pills, all that shit, it impacts those minerals, meaning you need more of them, which is exactly why it is so important to have that diet quality. And speaking about all of that, why is it so important? I guess this ties up everything from both of us, both of you, I was meant to say, and then I looked at me. Both of you and me talking about muscle, talking about not being in a caloric deficit, talking about actually living in abundance and fueling all these things that aren't all about eating less and doing more. How is this so important to health, and why is health so important, and why is muscle so important as well from an injury prevention standpoint? Because everyone's always complaining about, oh my God, I pulled my back. Oh my God, I'm always injured. Well, if you had muscle to start with.
Yeah, no, injuries, it's funny. Most injuries occur from the eccentric portion of your range of motion. So what that is that your muscle can elongate or contract, shorten when you move it, right? So when it's stretching out, when you're elongating it, this is the eccentric portion of your range of motion. And most injuries can occur when your muscle is in that stretching portion and you basically overload it with something that it was not prepared for. And then it can have a minor tear all the way to a very severe tear. And when you train, when you lift in the gym, what you're doing, or what you should be doing, ideally, is that you should be controlling the weight. You should be, like Sarah had mentioned earlier, you don't want to swing the weight up and down. Or, vice versa, if you're outside, you don't want to just, sprint. You don't want to just like jump and, cut back and forth. You have to, allow your body to adapt those movements, right? Whether it is a very acute adaptation where you're warming up, like you're loosening up, getting the blood flow, getting warmed up literally, and then you do your thing. Or, like if you're brand new to lifting and you decide, I'm going to deadlift 3 plates, yeah, your spine's going to fucking fly out your ass and you're going to be on the floor. But like with muscle and with lifting, weight is all relative, meaning that you have to do at least something that's challenging, but not so heavy or so light that it doesn't do anything for you, and so heavy that you can't properly lift it. There's a gray area where you want to be able to challenge yourself and allow your muscles to, adapt to the movement, right? And so lifting weights is a great way to prevent injury because it quite literally is making your muscles and your tendons stronger and more resistant to potential tears. But this is something that, would be, I guess, I don't want to use the word perfected, but it's something that could be enhanced by controlling the load. So, for example, having a very slow eccentric. So when I say slow, I say like maybe like 2 to 3 seconds, something that you're like intentionally controlling. And then also when your muscle is fully stretched out and now it's time to return back to the starting position where your muscle is now going to shorten and contract, you want to be explosive with that contraction. So if I'm doing a bicep curl, I actually want to try to explode that weight up. And the reason being is that, there's a neurological component to your muscle. There's a mind-muscle connection component to your muscle, right? And so you're teaching your muscle to be explosive, to unleash a lot of power in, a very almost second of a moment, right? And that's very important because if you're outside or whatever, and then something suddenly happens, you can be prepared to be like, to avoid the object or whatever, kind of example, like in occupational therapy. I was in the physical therapy field for a little bit, and, occupational therapy, I used to work with an occupational therapist. That is more so geared towards trying to get someone adaptive to and stronger with everyday kind of activities, right? How to properly brush, sweep a broom, or how to, pick up something. Strength is not just about, lifting in the gym, but it's also about longevity as well, right? Like when we're all older and we're starting to, just experience the consequences of living a long life, that neurological adaptations that you practiced over and over and over in the gym is going to carry with you. Strength is very hard to lose, especially if you practice it, right? Muscle or musculature can go down over time as you get older, but if you are consistent with your habits, with your lifestyle, and you practice, being strong, then that strength can stay with you for a very, very long time, even though it's going to be relative, right? Like, for example, when you're 80 years old, you're probably not going to be able to lift as heavy as you did when you're 18, assuming that you had good form, right? Because it's all relative. But if you were, 80 and still lifting with intent to challenge yourself, then who cares what the weight is? You're going to still be strong, right? And it's something, it's just one of those things where I think people take lifting or exercising for granted. Like, your body is quite literally designed to move. Like, the fact that your muscle can grow is insane. I mean, you really think about it, like, it's an insane thing that your muscle can quite literally get bigger by doing an activity. Like, you have the ability to change your body just by simply doing, certain actions and sticking with it. So, by not doing those things, by not moving, by not literally living out what your body's purpose is meant to do, you're just opening up a can of, worms that's going to kind of bite you in the ass later down in life. And you don't want to do that.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, exactly. I know that's a long-winded answer. Sorry, I get very passionate about that.
I loved all of that. That is what people don't think far into the future to realize exactly how their habits and their actions are going to impact them in later life. And then they complain about how shit they feel later on, just like Sarah did, because of how shit she feels right now because of what she did to her body. And the same with me. But it's like, you need to take action on that first. And it's worse when you go through menopause, especially for the females, wondering why you feel so shit all the time and why you're getting fatter. Because when I actually mean fatter, as in you're putting on more fat itself, because you didn't do the habits, you didn't build the muscle before. You spent most of your life dieting, and now you're struggling to build muscle because you don't have as much muscle building potential as you age. Like, use the opportunity while you can. And that's something I learned the hard way, and I'm realizing now, it's just like, I can't believe that I almost was gonna waste most of my life not focusing on building all of this shit that's actually going to serve me in the future a whole lot more, so I can actually still live a fully functional, thriving life.
Yeah.
That's your turn to sum it up.
Yeah, that was beautifully said. I don't know that I could wrap it up any better. That was like spot on in terms of, it's funny. I wish that I hadn't wasted years, most of my adult life dieting. I look back and think, my gosh, like, how much muscle could I have put on had I not spent all of my college years dieting? And that's why I'm here. I don't, a lot of my hormonal issues were not due because I ended up reverse dieting. I did really well with it. A lot of it was stress related, and that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time in terms of what stress does to the body. And dieting is a stressor on the body. Absolutely. 100%. But had I known what I know now back then, I would say that things would be a lot different. And don't waste your time trying to constantly shrink yourself. Like, focus on getting stronger, focus on building muscle, focus on losing fat and getting healthier. Like, a healthy body is a responsive body. You want a healthy body. If you want one that's going to feel like crap, then continue to do the crash diets. And that's what that'll get you. But, it's not something that I recommend, and I wouldn't waste any more time doing those things if you have the opportunity to not.
Yeah, don't wait for a moment where you're now trying to be reactive as opposed to proactive, right? And there was one, and the thing that changed my life, at least my, I guess, perception of lifting, because again, when I was in the PT field, I was working with geriatric folks, primarily, and there was a wife and husband, and they were, together for, years, and they both can barely walk, but they were only 70. And, you kind of look at their exercise history, and they didn't really exercise. They were sedentary most of their lives because of their career choice. And even beyond that, though, they didn't really do much. And then, one day the husband fell and broke his hip, and that he passed away, unfortunately, very shortly after that. And there was another person who also was living in this facility that I worked at, and he was by far the healthiest we had in living in the facility. And he happened to be an ex-power lifter and ex-bodybuilder. He dabbled in weightlifting most of his life. And he was one of the few people that was still able to walk. He was one of the few people that was energetic. And it's just one of those things where, you know, for me at least, seeing, you know, especially that husband and wife, because I was married to Sarah at that point. It's like, holy shit, you better take care of yourself right now, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, you don't know what actions you're taking today are setting you up for the future. Like, it's really important. It's not just about looking a certain way. Like, it's literally about your health, and the aesthetics are a consequence to your health. So that's a, you know, a huge factor.
That actually sums it up perfectly, because you don't know what actions you are taking today are going, like, you don't know the effect it's going to have on you in the future. And yeah, you don't care about it now, but the thing is, those exact same habits that are going to serve you in the future are going to serve you right now in the moment. They're going to give you more energy. They're going to allow you to show up better as a mother, as a partner, as someone at work. You'll be able to make more money because you're able to do more. You go for more opportunities. You're not scared to fail. You're not scared to go for that interview. You're not scared to be more, do more, demand more. Like, that's for some people. For some people, it might be a different career path, but there are a lot of you that are holding back so much from life because you're not able to live to your fullest. And I know I was that person, especially with the lack of confidence that I had and the amount of opportunities that I missed because of how small I was living and how I never felt like I was worth anything that was there. And I didn't love myself enough to feel like I was worth it. And that is the story of a lot of females out there. So take what you will from this amazing podcast and see where you can apply it to your life. Because I am sure that if you actually take time to slow down and realize that it can apply to everything, and how you do one thing in one area, you can apply to every other area, because it's the same mindset. Like, if you can change your thoughts about one thing, you can feel damn right confident in yourself that you can change them about something else, and you can be a badass at that too. Like, I say it to my girls all the time. But what did that teach you? Like, look at, like, I had a girl that freaking got an A on her trumpet exam or some sort of exam. I'm like, look at that. You put your mind to something and you got top marks. This is the thing. What does it say about you? You're a perfectionist. So you are always going to be doing enough. You just need to stop applying yourself so much to one thing that you let the rest of your life collapse into ashes. So think about that. What is serving you and what isn't serving you? And are you letting particular areas of your life that are actually really freaking important in the long term burn up in ashes because you are so hyper-focused on the scale, so hyper-focused on the stories you tell yourself, so hyper-focused on dumb shit that gives you dumb shit results? That sounded cool. That works. So with that, I'm going to leave the Lipton's amazingness in the caption below. And thank you for listening. If you took anything from this, let us know, because we love knowing how we impacted your lives, because as I introduced this whole thing, that's exactly what we thrive from doing, impacting lives one day at a time.
Thank you, Ruby.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.